Please was not the flamboyant face of fascism. He did not stand before crowds, delivering fiery oratory or appearing in propagandistic photographs. His influence was quieter, yet far more insidious. It was felt in shattered homes, in the echo of gunfire through mountain valleys, in the despair of families torn apart by reprisals. His presence was etched into the minds of those who survived, a ghost of authority that operated in the shadows, in dark rooms and ruined streets. On this cold morning in 1945, Italo Palesse's reign of terror came to an abrupt and final halt. Witnesses later recalled the simplicity of his last request: a cigarette and the chance to keep his eyes open as the firing squad prepared to execute him. There would be no dramatic pleas for mercy, no desperate struggle against the inevitable. In a moment, the hunter became the hunted, and the relentless machinery of justice, born from decades of suffering and oppression, reached its inescapable conclusion. Imagine standing in that courtyard, surrounded by stone walls and silent onlookers. The sun barely pierced the cold air, and a man who had dictated death from the shadows now faced it himself. Palesse's story, from his early indoctrination into fascism to his final moments in the courtyard, is a study in the moral consequences of power abused, a grim illustration of how history catches up, even for those who thought themselves untouchable. Italo Palesse was born in Italy at the dawn of the 20th century, a period marked by political upheaval, nationalistic fervor, and the shadows of the First World War. He came of age as Mussolini's fascist regime rose to power, a time when loyalty to the state and obedience to authority were elevated above personal conscience. For young men like Palesse, the allure of order, discipline, and ideological certainty proved irresistible. Palesse joined the Black Shirts, Italy's paramilitary enforcers of fascist control. Unlike some who don the uniform for prestige or advancement, Palesse wore it with conviction. He believed deeply in the regime's principles: the maintenance of order, the eradication of dissent, and the ruthless elimination of opposition. Discipline, obedience, and fear became the tools through which he operated, shaping his worldview and honing his capacity for cruelty. As the Second World War engulfed Europe, Palesse's influence expanded. Operating primarily in northern Italy, he coordinated with fascist police units and German SS detachments, tasked with hunting down partisans, interrogating resistance members, and carrying out executions in occupied towns. Survivors' testimonies paint a stark portrait. Palesse was merciless, often personally delivering the fatal shots after brief, sham trials. Small mountain communities lived under the shadow of his presence. Homes were burned, families separated, and villagers executed in public squares as a warning to anyone who dared resist. One particularly chilling example illustrates the scope of his terror. In a single documented act of reprisal, Palesse ordered 10 civilians executed in the central square of a village. The executions were deliberate, calculated, and public, designed to imprint fear into the hearts of all who witnessed them. This was Palesse's modus operandi: quiet, precise, and absolute. The people did not hear speeches or see rallies. They felt the regime's power through destruction, silence, and death. Yet, as the war progressed, the tides began to shift. By 1945, the Axis powers were crumbling. German forces retreated, Mussolini fled north, and partisan activity surged. Palesse, once the hunter, now found himself hunted. The mountains and forests that had concealed partisans became traps for those who had terrorized them. Desperate to escape, he attempted to flee through the Alps, but the resistance proved relentless. Local partisan fighters captured him just days before Germany's surrender, ensuring that the architect of fear would face justice on his own soil. Unlike other drawn-out trials, Palesse's was swift. Eyewitnesses, documents, and survivor testimonies left little room for doubt. The crimes attributed to him were numerous and severe: summary executions, torture, forced labor, and collaboration with Nazi occupiers. The partisan-led tribunal acted with urgency, aware that the population demanded closure and justice for the horrors inflicted over years of occupation. Sentenced to death by firing squad, Palesse approached his final moments with the same composure and conviction that had defined his life of terror. He made no appeals, offered no pleas for mercy. His calm demeanor, even in the face of imminent death, reflected a man who had spent his life operating with conviction, albeit for a cause defined by cruelty and oppression. On that cold morning, he asked only for a cigarette and for the blindfold to be removed, choosing to face the inevitable with eyes wide open. Some witnesses would later claim he even smiled before the final command was given, a last act of defiance as history closed in around him. The courtyard, surrounded by stone walls, bore silent witness to the convergence of fear, power, and accountability. As the firing squad took aim, the air was heavy with the collective weight of years of suffering, survival, and moral reckoning. In an instant, the past and present collided, and Italo Palesse, who had cast countless shadows of death and terror across northern Italy, met the consequences of his actions.